This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network, presented by Hearthside Bank.
Welcome into the Sports Source Digital Network. I'm John Pennington, joined by Will West right here, by Bob HODGE right there. We're going to talk a little bit about the SEC today, and there is a lot of talk coming out of Destin. Of course, the SEC meeting's going on. Greg Sankey made it clear first early in the week that, hey, we're not married to any playoff plans just yet, because there are a lot of stories out there that they are kind of down the road. SEC and Big Ten partnering up. They've got the power. Most likely, whether Greg Sankey is going to admit it or not, part of whatever plan they wind up with will have the SEC and the Big Ten demanding 4 automatic bids for each of their leagues. That's probably not great for college football, that other leagues would get 2, if that, and you're going to have entire swaths of the country who may lose interest. Down the road, are they going to be watching if their team can never make this SEC Big Ten Invitational? On the other hand, Greg Sankey and the SEC presidents, all 16 of them, they need money. I don't know if they need money. They want money.
They want money.
They want money. They're desperate for money. And they're going to be looking at this saying, I'm not my brother's keeper. We get what we can get, and I don't care about anybody else. So it could be short-term money, long-term question, or it could be we take care of everybody, but you don't make a lot of money off the top, or you don't make a lot of extra money off the top right now. So my question, guys, how should the SEC be looking at this? How should Greg Sankey and the presidents be handling this? Should they be saying, hell with everybody else, we're getting 4 automatic bids, or should they look at it and say, we're hurting the sport by doing this?
Well, I have been playing tennis in my mind with this question, because I think you can go either way with this. Mm-hmm. You know, you can say that, okay, the Big Ten and the SEC are going to end up being the dominant conferences. They might as well go ahead and mark their territory and say, you all are going to dance to our tune. And that's where I was leaning first, was, okay, you're going to end up shaking this thing out. Yeah. But college football is such a regional sport that people get interested because of this group of teams over here and this group over here. And yeah, you pay attention to the national stuff, but I think that you do risk sitting there and taking a large chunk of your eventual audience, not next year, the year after, but a few years down the road, you're sitting there saying, we don't need you, we don't want you. And then you go, oh, we used to get 9.5 million people watching this game. Yeah. Now we're getting 7.2, and the networks are saying, so we're going to pay you like 7.2. So I think the short-term interest, yeah, I can see it, but I think long-term you're going to be better off a little bit more inclusive.
I don't understand why the law of diminishing returns is going to kick in if you do that. For me, Tony Bettini's idea originally was 3 SEC, 3 Big Ten, 2 Big 12, 2 ACC, group of 5, 5 at large. And I think that works because then anyone can earn that 4th spot. Last year, there wasn't a 4th SEC team that deserved to be in. There was not. You're 9-3 and you lost to Kentucky. Sorry, you're 9-3 and you got smoked by Oklahoma at home. Or, you know what I mean? Like, what? I don't.
What's your argument for getting in?
Yeah, at that point, I think that the law of diminishing return kicks in when you get to 4, in my opinion.
The problem is, if you're looking at it cash-wise, you're not only saying, well, if we'd had that 4th team, then we're guaranteed of getting that cash. But also, you've got this discussion that Tony Petitti wants to do it, and the SEC would follow suit, that you'll have a conference championship game, maybe, maybe not, but you'll create 2nd or 3rd games for those other slots to get in. So you could have 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5 in your conference. Hell, possibly you could have 1 versus 8 and 2 versus 7. You could have 4 games there. That's 4 more games of TV revenue for those 4 bids that are automatic. It could be a lot more money. So I get the idea of why they want it. I don't think fans want, I don't think a lot of what they're doing right now has anything to do with the fans, and I think eventually that's going to burn them. I think you're not thinking about the fans on any level in any way. Now, for the first time, you're thinking about the players, only because they've got all the power right now. But you're not talking about the fans at all, and I think that burns you, because I don't think most fans want that kind of a guaranteed, oh, well, it's not even. Name me another sport. We don't watch the NFL and know every year, well, the NFC West gets 2 teams in automatically. We don't do that.
There's one. There is one, and it's the EPL. It's European
Okay,
soccer,
well-
and I've seen this model work, and that's why I'm in favor of having a model like this, because then
It's not America, though.
It's
American
not.
fans aren't used to that.
So it's going to be a bit of a change, but I've seen that model work, and I've seen it be incredibly effective, and I've seen it be brilliant. I mean, just this weekend
Meeting
we
into
had
the Champions League.
getting into the Champions League, and then or promotion and relegation. The way that they do it is your top 2 teams move up, and then you have a playoff for the others, and it's actually pretty fantastic. The thing I don't love about that, though, is that you're going to do this, and then how quickly does it move to the next? And if you're
not
going
locked
to
into
create
anything.
this, there's a reason the Champions League works. It's been 30 years of fans being used to this in Europe to see their teams
You
do
just
this.
did in Europe.
Yes.
I just think that's the key. They also, their form of a tournament is instead of we're going to seed teams and do it like this, they literally
Group
draw
play, yeah.
they draw ping pong balls out of a jar, and the 2 best teams can play in the first round, and the 2 worst teams can get a pass to into the later rounds. Americans aren't ready for that, so I don't think
I agree.
you're right.
But
Globally,
can
but
you
I'm-
not do one part, not the other, right? Can you not do a tournament? Because I think the SEC championship, as it sits right now, if you do the automatic bids, is kind of dead. Okay, you got to.
one versus 2. The
Yeah,
game.
1 versus 2
I
the
think there's
game,
no
and you
point
get
in
a
it.
bye if you have 1 versus 2. That's stupid. But I think if you do 1 gets in, and then 2 plays 6, 3 plays, or 2 plays 5, 3 plays 4, I think all of a sudden that weekend's incredible in Atlanta, and everyone is tuned into this because stakes are what matters in sports. And right now, what Greg Sankey's trying to do, what the SEC is trying to do, is remove the stakes
you
off the
take it,
table
it's
and get
automatic.
ourselves guaranteed spots, guaranteed money.
But they would be saying they're adding stakes by saying for those 4 slots you got to play for them.
That would add
Well,
stakes.
but see,
again.
to me, if there's stakes, you've got to earn your stakes. And if you're number 8 in the SEC and you're going to play number 1 for a trip to the postseason, no, you didn't earn it. You did not earn that shot.
The regular season is wiped clean. Doesn't mean
if
it.
you do it that way, but if you do number 1 gets in,
Number 1 and 2 is how you
1
have
and
to
2
do
get
it.
in, and then
6
3 and 4, 3 plays 6, 4 plays 5 on an SEC championship
still don't like
weekend,
it, yeah.
kind of like they did in Wembley for EFL 2 on
Still don't
Monday.
care for it.
Like,
Yeah.
I know that model is compelling. Now,
But
will
you-
fans get it in America, especially in Southern
That's-
Well,
America?
here's the thing.
the key.
Maybe
I'm
fans,
rural America.
but maybe fans don't want to get it
That's true.
because maybe we like the way we do things. And so far, there's not a sports model in the U.S. that works better than what the NFL has done.
Yeah.
And to me, college football will move in that direction eventually, but you're not going to do it with 134 teams.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to do it with 80 teams. Can you even do it with, I hear the number 64, you know?
Which is kind of where you are in the power conferences
Yeah.
anyway.
So are you going to be able to make an NFL system work? So I think if you look at what the SEC and the Big Ten are doing right now, I think that points to going to kind of an NFL system.
Yeah.
And it's going to kick a lot of other teams out. But once again, I think in the long term, you know, do the Texas Tech fans and the SMU fans and all these people, do you just say you're going away?
Well, you lose the entire West Coast, basically.
Yeah, and
you
the-
can
and the-
talk
and the
about,
West-
we can talk about, well, there are 4 Big Ten teams. Okay, so there's 4. Nobody else in the West is going to care
Correct.
about any of this. So I think that's a lot of TVs that aren't going to be tuning in, and it's the difference, as you say,
And I
between
just also
9 and 7
wonder,
million
too,
viewers.
if SEC and Big Ten thinking is skewed a bit because college football is nowhere bigger than in the South. And then if you move away from the South, okay, you get into the Big Ten where it's
Big
not
up there.
SEC-like, but it's still, you know, the Purdue's and Illinois, they have big followings despite the fact they're not Ohio State and win something every
They have huge alumni chapters. The difference between Big Ten and SEC is simply this. There's other stuff to do up there.
Yes. Yes.
You've got pro teams up there, and you've had them for years. The South didn't have pro teams until the 60s, so that is the difference.
So-
the Southern pro teams are the SEC teams.
So, or the Big Ten, and even though they're spread out across the country, and the SEC, even though they're spread out all the way, you know, across into far Texas, are they looking at this in a way they shouldn't be? That we're huge, we're big, whereas no, in the grand scheme of things, you know, you might be, what are they nationally sports rights? Number 3 in the pecking order, number 2 somewhere. That they're looking at themselves as being bigger than they are, and they do have a chance to take the goose with the golden egg and cut its head off.
I would just say this. I'm between the way we're seated is right. Let's take the European thing out of it. You're big into soccer and you think it could, you're fine with moving it here.
I'm okay.
I love European soccer as well. Congratulations, Liverpool. But at the same time, I don't think guys like him are going to want to change that model. I think there are a lot of people who's like, what are you doing? I just think that there's got to be a path better than we're going to jerry-rig this thing to where we get all the automatic bids and you don't. I think there's just too much negative that goes with that. The other problem I have with it is it's not necessary. Granted, last year was the first year in forever. If you'd counted and had 12 teams in the past, this is the first time in forever you wouldn't have had 4 SEC teams. You don't have automatic. You got one automatic bid in basketball to the SEC Tournament Championship. 13 SEC teams made the tournament last year. Was it 13 or 14? 13.
Maybe 14.
And then this year, I think it was 14. Let me see here. It was, yes, it was 14 in basketball. It's 13 in baseball. Again, no automatic bids. You don't need the automatic bids. I don't think there's room for this. I don't think fans around the country are going to accept this. I think you're just going to be having people, giving them another reason to leave. And the number of people you see on social media saying, I'm done with this. NIL, I'm done with this. The transfer portal, another court case, I'm done with this. Now you're going to say, oh, and by the way, your teams have a 1 in 20 shot of making the playoffs, whereas our teams have a 1 in 5 chance. I just don't think that's smart long term.
Well, the two things that I would say to Greg Sankey, you're not national. And so why are you trying to act like you're national? That's great. You're lining your pocket immediately, but it's pigs get fed and hogs get slaughtered. You're going to lose audience somewhere else because you are doing this. And the other side I would say to the other schools.
For anybody at home listening to this, there's either a chopper flying overhead or it's the rapture. So we've got a loud sound here in the studio. My apologies.
But the other thing that I would say too is if you're the conference commissioners, why are you following Greg Sankey? He's the one that gave you and pushed so hard to get the setup you had last year, which clearly it didn't work. So you moved this quickly to a different setup. And now Greg Sankey is also pushing that. Why would you think this time Greg Sankey has it right? So why would you follow him down this hole when you just followed him down a hole? Yeah. And to me, what's going to give fans, I think fans will evolve to anything if you evolve to most things. If you evolve to it and stay there. The thing is when every year the rules change. Like if you had the NCAA tournament, what makes the NCAA tournament great? You can sit there with that bracket and you can do it and you have office pools and you have all of that.
And now they're going to creep on that too.
But the more you change it, the more fans are going to say, I'm done. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing to me that's going to do it. The NFL, it was a big deal when they went to 14 teams, right? And they were very careful and calculated
I still don't like it, but
about how they did it. Yeah. But this just seems like, we didn't maximize all the revenue we humanly can. Change it. So you're going to go to 12, then to 14, then to 16,
and the NFL was at 12 for years before they went to 14. Yes. Whereas you went to the BCS in '98, and then so basically a generation.
Yeah.
BCS, and they changed the BCS formula every year, basically.
Yes.
So then you finally go to the playoff, and it's 4 teams. Then you switch to 12 teams. Now you're changing the way it's going to be lined up for next year, and then you're going to change it for the year on. Yeah, I do think that's a problem.
And I do agree with Will what you just said. Pick something and stick to it, and people probably will get used to it. But going back to the original question, do you have enough people left when you get used to it for this to be the huge moneymaker that you think it's going to be? That's the reason I kind of think that somebody needs to back up and sit there and tell the SEC and the Big Ten, look, no, the guy down there that is the SMU fan, he doesn't want to watch Ohio State or Tennessee or Alabama, but he will when his team has been part of this mix. You shut too many people out, they'll go watch something else.
Well, if the NFL came out and said we're going to give double the bids to the East and Central divisions.
Yes.
And not so much for the West divisions out there and the South. So the traditional places where we first started, they're going to get more bids. And these other, gradually you're going to lose those people.
Yep.
In the South and the West, they would say, this isn't a fair shake.
Well, you're stacking the deck against us.
Yes, so why would we take part in it? And I think the SEC and the Big Ten had better realize, best way to put it, you're stacking the deck for yourself, but at the same time, you're stacking the deck against everyone else. And as long as it's college football and they're needing to make money off the entire country, because it's regional, you can't afford to tell half the country, we don't need you. You don't get in.
Don't care.
I just don't think it's long-term thinking to go down that direction.
And the other side of it is, if you're as good as you say you are, you don't need to stack.
Exactly. You don't
Yeah,
need to.
exactly.
You don't need to.
And I mean, and when will they find out whatever they do in this year, next year, and the year after that? 2034? That's when you go, oh,
Whoops.
that was a mistake.
Yeah.
And by the time you get there, too late.
Yeah, and here's the thing. If anybody's watching this saying, well, I'm not going to care. We know Southeastern Conference fans aren't going to have a problem with it. Neither are Big Ten fans. But you have to step outside your own zone there and realize what's it mean for everybody else. How would you like it if it were the Big 12 and the ACC that were getting more
Anytime
bids?
a major sport is doing these things, somebody should go up and whisper in their ear, NASCAR.
Yes.
Because NASCAR thought they were going to make a fortune when they got out of the South and went nationwide.
Kansas
and
City,
it ain't been the
man.
same since.
Phoenix.
Yeah.
And now you can't fill Bristol.
Yep.
There is blowback at times.
Yes.
So. All
And
right.
they also changed it all the time with different tires, car tomorrow. There were constant changes.
Who got in? They created
Yes.
the playoff thing and
Absolutely.
the different. Yeah.
And now,
they changed everything.
I grew up with NASCAR. I literally don't know what
And they
gets
keep
you in.
making these changes because they think that can get us back to where we were. And
You were better off just staying where you were.
Better off sometimes. So look before you leap.
Bob Hodge, Will West, I'm John Pennington. If you like content like this, be sure to click the like button. Be sure to hit subscribe so you'll know when we post stuff on the channel. Be sure to leave a comment. If you disagree with us and say, no, that the SEC should argue for 8 automatic bids. If you like that, tell us. If you dislike it, tell us. If you agree with us, in other words, tell us. If you're like Will, and it's like, let's just go to a European soccer system. It's not going to work, but we'll see. Tell us. And we'll see you next time on the Sports Source Digital Network.